Most Venerable Geshe Lhatola, the Chairman of Education Council, Department of Education, the Central Tibetan Administration. Ms. Tenzin Pemala, the Joint Secretary at the Department of Education, Central Tibetan Administration. Geshe Yöntem Phunsola, the Chief Administrator at this monastery, Drepung Losel Monastery. My colleague and a real educator, Ms. Krista Tenari, all the scholars, the educators here from the Department of Education, those who have come here through Vana Foundation, of course from various schools. Our great monastic scholars, some of the scholars who have been studying modern science for a number of years, who are also participating here. First of all, I'd like to extend my greetings to all of you. As I will have the opportunity to share some of my thoughts throughout the workshop in the next 4 days, I'll keep my remarks very short. I just wanted to say that Dr. Daniel Goleman, who is one of the pioneers whose writings have shaped the very field that we are going to be engaging here, social emotional learning, and the social emotional and ethical learning, or otherwise known as secular ethics, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been encouraging, who has written and encouraging this curriculum in educational field. He wrote a book to coincide with the 80th celebration of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and it was entitled A Force for Good. In that, Daniel Goleman mentions that the visionary, what is the visionary, is defined as someone who can see the future way before others can see. And he says that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is truly a visionary. Visionary in the sense that for the last 40 years, more than 40 years ago, His Holiness realized that for the modern world, what would be most crucial, at least one of the most crucial forms of education, would be the educating the heart and mind. And to encourage and to realize some form of curriculum to promote educating the heart and mind. He has, of course, engaged with many scholars, scientists, educators, healthcare professionals, people from all walks of life, to really see what would be a common approach to promoting the very basic human values. Because it's at the end, it's the basic human values that will contribute to the survival and flourishing of the humanity. And so from these interactions, these discussions, for over four decades now, he has written a number of books, Ethics for a New Millennium, Beyond Religion, and many other talks that he has given, emphasizing the need for secular ethics, but also articulating the very key elements of what will constitute the education of heart and mind. And we were very fortunate that His Holiness has entrusted us at Emory University to create a framework that can be comprehensive enough, and also some sample curricula. Since 2015, we have been working on this, and I have the honor of directing this initiative through the Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics, But I'm deeply, deeply grateful to His Holiness for entrusting us with this, one of the most important initiatives, visions of His Holiness. But also very grateful to the university at Emory, our administrators, a great team we have. Unfortunately, many of them are not here. Of course, Krista is here. Jen will be joining us tomorrow. She's just arriving this evening. And we have other great members of the team, Brendan Osawa de Silva and Linda Lentieri, Lindy, and a number of the expert in C learning, in social emotional learning. So we will talk more about that, but I just wanted to, at the outset, acknowledge the contribution of so many people. There have been the dozens of educators who have worked in drafting the curriculum. As Ms. Tenzin Pemala mentioned, this work has gone through many versions, many drafts, and finally we are at a point, I think, that we can claim that this would be our final product, at least for the time being, and we are set to launch internationally this program in April 4, 5, and 6 in New Delhi. The framework, which is part of the C Learning Companion, the volume that you have, one of the volumes that have been distributed to you, will be translated in 6 UN languages, and in addition to those, another 6 or 7 languages. And also the early elementary school curriculum, not the middle school one. Here, most of you are middle school educators, but the early elementary curriculum will be translated also. So we have very high hopes that, with your participation and with, your commitment and confidence in this form of education, this will make a difference here in India for Indian and Tibetan communities, but also to the whole world. So with these few words, I want to once again thank the Department of Education. It's really the Department of Education, Central Administration, that asked us to offer this and has coordinated the most of the preparation has been done from Tenzin Pemala. So thank you so much, and for coordinating and inviting all the educators here. But I'm also very thankful to Vana Foundation, one of our key partners here in India. The launch in April is coordinated by the Office of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama Trust, Vana Foundation, and Emory University. So many of you are associated with Vana Foundation, the core members of the Vana team. Thank you so much for your support and being here. And of course, I'm very, very thankful for the Tonglen contingency here. Venerable Jamyangla has done an incredible work, just really addressing the need for those who are the poorest of the poor in the community, the slum community. So thank you so much. Actually, in this field, secular ethics, probably they have done the bulk of work to this day. So thank you for your participation. I'm really happy to see also other friends that who have been here. Reshmaji, thank you for your participation. Rahulji, thank you. And I'm also very grateful to our science scholars. You have a number of scholars back there right now. Some of them have completed 6-year science program and completed a 2-year residency at Emory University. There are others that who will be going there, so they are here, and then some teachers. We have here 4 of them from Nepal, and we know that they will play an important role. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I don't want to follow the protocol of greeting everybody individually, but I'd like to greet all of you, especially those on the platform and all of you. I would like to thank the Department of Education for inviting me. And in fact, the Department of Education has been constantly asking me to deliver talks on secular ethics here and there. Similarly, the Tibetan Children's Village asked me to give talks here and there. So I've been, although don't know much, but I've been delivering those talks in here. I don't know where I am going. I've been just giving talks and talks and talks. So I thank the Department of Education. And in fact, it's not just the Department of Education. Since the Cabinet and the Department of Education appointed me as the chairman of the Tibetan Education Council, the one thing that I could pursue was make it a point to include secular ethics program in the school curriculum. And we managed to do that. That is one reason why it is now moving. So the credit goes to me also, okay? Then secondly, one of the troublemaker for me is Geshe Lobsang Tenzin. We have been working and fighting for the last many years with this science education for the monks, and luckily we are quite successful. Now with this secular ethics also, His Holiness asked me, Geshe Lobsang and Geshe Damdul, the 3 of you should do something about promoting secular ethics. I was flabbergasted. I know nothing about secular ethics. Why His Holiness is saying this to me? So I contacted him. This is what His Holiness is saying. Then he started running, just as he did with the science program. So I'm always very grateful to him because he saved my life. Okay? So I occasionally make some connection here and there. But then as a result of making him work so much, he also makes me to come almost every place where he is doing something, although I have not much role to play. So I'm here at his insistence also. So since I'm supposed to be the chief guest, whatever that means, and we have time from 9 to 10, and since I've come all the way from Dharamsala to here, knowing not what I'm going to do here, except having the pleasure of meeting many of you. So I said this morning that there will not be much time for me to speak, since there are 4 or 5 people are speaking before me. And at least Geshe said, okay, I'll speak only 10 minutes. So you speak at least half an hour. So I'm not just fond of speaking for the sake of speaking, but since you're all here, we have to play this role, and we have to be here until 10. So I will try to give a little bit background, the philosophical background, and also some of the leading ideas in the secular ethics program, because the actual teaching process and techniques will be taught by the highly educated, trained resource persons, right? So during my visit to many schools, what I've noticed is that many of them are very enthusiastic to start the secular ethics program, but they are a little bit lost. How are we going to proceed? What we have to do? So that's a problem which many schools are facing, at least the Tibetan schools which I visited. So I told them that this Emory program is coming, and in fact the elementary school program and middle school program, they're all there. I have all the soft copies, so I shared them as much as possible, not only to the Tibetans, but many Indians and people from other part of the world come to see me about secular ethics. So I do that. At the same time, I have been also telling them, look, all these education programs are made by human beings. So you don't have to always follow somebody. You should also make your initiative how to teach ethics or secular ethics, for that matter. Okay? Because all the educations, all the activities that we do, we always can learn a lot from others, but this does not mean to say we cannot start by ourselves. Please don't get stuck by thinking like that. There is a Tibetan saying which says, all activities are imitations. All activities are imitations, and whoever does the best imitation is called a scholar. This is how I become chief guest, you see. This bunch of papers are all written by other people. So I took note of, I don't know how many dozens of quintals of pages lying in my room, imitations, but not in a blind way, but I copy those words, sentences, ideas, which strikes a chord to my way of thinking. Because at the end of the day, when you say something, then there will be questions, you need to answer, you see. So you cannot just say something, okay? So I'm reading basically, social, emotional, ethical education. For kindergarten through high school, we have provided, which means not me, Emory University, provided methods for teaching and learning for each age group, as well as simple unit plans to demonstrate how a teacher might bring several topics and competencies together in a complete arc that deepens understanding. Also included are representative syllabi and curricula that are already being taught in specific colleges, thereby showing how secular ethics can be taught at every stage of education. Before I forget, I must insert this line by saying, although we talk so much about teaching secular ethics or ethics thereby, but the most important thing that I'm observing is one who is teaching ethics must herself be ethical. That's the most difficult part. There's a lot of questions whether ethics or secular ethics can be taught or cannot be taught. Or is it necessary to be taught or not necessary to be taught? That question was there right from Aristotle and Socrates, down in the line. Many say no need to teach. It's like eating food, It's so important, like eating food. We don't have to teach people how to eat. They'll pick up by themselves, imitating their parents and the seniors. So similar, ethics is like that. It's not like singing. If there's somebody who is a very famous singer, everybody will say, oh, what a wonderful woman singer or man singer. But not the whole village and the town will say, she is such a good singer, all of us should become like that, and everybody starts singing. No. But when it comes to the question of ethics, everybody will say, there's not much need to talk about it because this is something we need to do. Hawa pani ki tarah, Hawa pani ki tarah. You need hawa, you need pani, No need to talk about it. So there's one line. So both are true. It can be taught, but it can be imbibed, not just by teaching, by following the examples of other people. So other people means those who teach ethics. They should be ethical. Especially for small kids. They're observing each and every act the parents are doing. And from there, they are learning. Not so much asking them sit and, listen. They will not listen. They'll say, I want to play, you see. So there's the thing. So His Holiness is not the few things we need to know. His Holiness is not saying he's the sole proponent of learning. Okay, he's not saying I'm the first person who did it, I'm great. He's not saying that. In fact, when we came up with this secular ethics program with the manuscript, he said, oh, my name, not necessary, not important, don't put it. Okay, so this is, but why His Holiness is paying so much emphasis today, it's not that nobody has thought about it, nobody has taught about it. It has been there for a long, long time. There is a long story about that. But today, as His Holiness has repeatedly said, the buildings are growing taller and taller, the morality is going lower and lower. Countless problems that we see in the family, between countries and so forth is because of degeneration of values. Values is another word that you need to really study a little bit. Everything has a value these days. Water has value, money has a lot of value. Everything has value. The one that doesn't have value is human value. Humans have not much value. So imagine when everything else, including small articles, have value and human beings have no value, how can we have happiness? So value is another important word that you need to study in depth when you talk about promoting secular ethics. So promoting basic human values is one of His Holiness's main commitment. One commitment was religious harmony. Second was basic good human values, right? And third was for the Tibetans and so forth. So basic human values, at one point His Holiness said, other activities I may stop when I become older, but promoting human values I will continue until my skull falls on the ground. Such a strong commitment. And those of you who had worked closely with His Holiness, you will see that he has this feeling of urgency. Sometimes so much that he makes us nervous, saying, what His Holiness, do this, why this is not happening? And those of us who are working with him, we are dumbfounded. What should we do? To immediately do something. Boom, there is, enlightenment on secular ethics. No, not possible. But, right. Okay. And the need to promote basic human values is in order to benefit all humanity. One point that I would like to mention here is, if you look at the way many things developed, then you will again clearly see the importance of secular ethics. For example, in the beginning there was Western philosophy, no separate science. Western philosophy has a lot of metaphysics. And it looks like some of the thinkers, they said, metaphysics we are not accepting, not denying, but metaphysics is a dark spot, dark area. Nobody are able to really figure out what they are talking about. God up there, somebody up, down there. Very difficult to figure out. So let us leave it for the time being. Let us do away with this matter and talk about the physics. This is how physics got separated from metaphysics. So talking about the real thing that we experience in our life, the physical reality. And then similarly, if you look at how spiritually got separated from religion. And then now secular ethics also. So if you look at all this trend, one thing will become very clear, that let us talk about something that touches us in our daily life. Even if you think about democracy, there's a word. I'm a student of political science, unfortunately, also. So in that, there is a line which says, what touches all must be affected by all. So let us talk about those that touches all of us. Let us talk about those that brings real happiness. Not just thinking that, you suffer, you work hard, and one day you will have this great heaven or enlightenment, things like that. Not talking about that. If you keep on talking about that, then you are not sure really what you are teaching to the people. That's the problem, you see. That's how Karl Marx was making this statement, religion is opium. Because he lived in time with the Perusian Christians, where he was able to clearly see the top religious leaders and the top political leaders, they're having nice time. They are sharing the facilities, the luxurious way of life, and then making the poor, ordinary people work like a donkey, saying, you walk like a donkey, you work hard. Then the reward is, you will go to heaven. This is happening still, unfortunately. I myself is supposed to be a religious practitioner, but I'm against those things, you see. So that's how Karl Marx made this very powerful statement, religion is opium. So having faced all these countless problems, then people have started thinking about all this, how should we do something that will bring, happiness now, right now. Now these days, if you talk about mindfulness meditation or meditation in general, they are talking more about being present here, right now. And I have been in my many talks telling people, happiness is not like rainbow that looks beautiful at a distance. The more you come closer, the more it disappears. We're not talking about that happiness. Happiness is not something that you will get after you finish all your school or education and get married and have a Mercedes car and things like that. No. Happiness is something that you should grow under your feet right now. Something that you should be having here at the Drepung Losel Ling Meditation Center. right? Really. So that's in Buddhism we call it Dene Devandrova, moving from peace to peace, moving from happiness to happiness. So that's what secular ethics is about. So few things that I'd like to mention. Then another thing that I would like to mention here is the word secularism itself. Again, I'm reading. As I told you, I'm good in imitation. This is important because when you talk about secular ethics, what do you mean by secularism? When you talk about mindfulness, what is mindfulness? When you talk about ethics, what is ethics? When you talk about empathy, what is empathy? Some of these salient features you must know. Oxford Dictionary defines the word secular as not concerned with the religion. There are a lot of issues there also. You can ask those questions to me in between times if you like. So it means not sacred. It means worldly. I was dumbfounded when I read this definition and then went back and read the traditional Tibetan compositions. There are countless Tibetan compositions on secular ethics. You will be shocked to hear this. And recently I made it a point to publish one of that book by Nagarjuna, which is on more or less on secular ethics. So worldly, in Tibetan it's called Jigde Michu, Tambel Hachu, Jigde Michu, the worldly ways of life and the religious ways of life. We made two distinctions. Jigde Michu, not Tambel Hachu. So Jigde Michu is, I think, it's secular ethics. Jigde Michu. So here it says Michu, Jigde, worldly. The word secular was coined by George Jacob Holyoake, who in his work English Secularism defined it as a code of duty pertaining to life, founded on considerations purely human and intended mainly for those who find theology indefinite or inadequate, unreliable or unbelievable. Okay. So in that sense, secularism emerged as an attempt to fill up the void and the inadequacy in theology and religion felt by its practitioners. It has been looked upon and used variously. The words secularism and socialism were incorporated by the Indian Constitution in its 42nd Amendment Act 1976. And Pandit Nehru, the first Indian Prime Minister of India, opted for secularism in full earnest. And the word secularism comes from the Latin word seculum, meaning generation, age, etc. In Christian Latin, the word means the world, especially opposed to the church, separation of the state and church. Because there was a time when everything was ruled by church. Then again, just like the separation of physics from metaphysics, some of the thinkers, they said, when the whole country is ruled by the church or the priest, whoever, then they talk about the involvement of the God, you see. So some of these thinkers say, okay, fine, you talk about this, but let us separate the church and the state. Again, that separation is also very similar to the separation or difference between secularism and religion. Okay. The world also means the doctrine that morality should be based solely on regard to the well-being of mankind in the present life. So secular ethics, when we talk about secular ethics, we are talking only about this present life. We are not talking about God, we are not talking about afterlife, we are not talking about nirvana. Tibetans will ask a lot of questions with regard to this. And if in between time, if you have, I will be happy to answer. So any noble idea which is applicable to one and all, irrespective of its time and space, may be termed as secular. Indian secularism is based on universal family norms, that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, beyond boundaries. So why I'm talking about the secular ethics used in the Indian Constitution? Because His Holiness speaks of this word secular ethics based on the Indian Constitution, which is a little bit controversial in some places in Europe and America and so forth. So therefore we are using this word social, emotional, ethical learning, right? Okay, that's one thing. I need to check time also. Okay, I'll just give you one example about empathy. George Orwell is an inspiring model. After several years as a colonial police officer in British Burma in 1920s, Orwell returned to Britain determined to discover what life was like for those living on the social margins. Okay, empathy. I wanted to submerge myself to get right down among the oppressed. Right down among the oppressed. This is important because when we talk about teaching secular ethics, it is not coming from top down, but from bottom up. Top down is religious process of teaching. It came from God, came from Buddha. But secular, when we teach secular ethics, it is from bottom up. Is it better that I smile at you and you smile at me? With that kind of human experience. So it's bottom up. So that's why George Orwell experimented this and tried to find out what life was like for those living on the social margins. I wanted to submerge myself to get right down among the oppressed. So he dressed up as a tramp with shabby shoes and coat and lived on the streets of East London with the beggars and vagabonds. The result, recorded in his book, Down and Out in Paris and London, was a radical change in his beliefs, priorities, and relationships. He not only realized that homeless people are not drunken scoundrels. So look at this. When you really try to know other people's problems, you will appreciate it. You will learn much from that. He found that they were not drunken scoundrels. Orwell developed new friendships, shifted his view on inequality, and gathered some superb literary material. It was the greatest travel experience of his life. He realized that empathy doesn't just make you good, it is good for you too. As we always say, compassion does not make good for other people necessarily, but it makes good for yourself. Okay, so you are not doing any self-sacrifice. And this strikes a chord with John Dewey, who said all genuine education comes about through experience, relating to other people's sufferings, experience, and so forth. Okay, that's one I wanted to mention. So time is running out. But then another point that I would like to mention is, now what is empathy? It is the ability to step into the shoes of another person, aiming to understand their feelings and perspectives, and to use that understanding to guide our actions. That makes it different from kindness or pity, and don't confuse it with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. As George Bernard Shaw pointed out, do not do unto others as you should have them do unto you. They might have different tastes. Empathy is about discovering those different tastes of other people. Okay. Another important that you need to deal with when you study secular ethics program is the emotional regulation. Okay. So you need to understand human emotion. This is basically saying we are controlled by our mind. And if you don't understand mind, you will never have happiness. Okay? Now when you talk about mind, it is nothing but full of different kind of emotions, positive emotions, negative emotions. And in Buddhism we call it destructive emotions. So you need to make a thorough study about all these different kind of destructive emotions and how these destructive emotions makes your life miserable. How these destructive emotions victimizes your life. And therefore some of the Buddhist teachers, they say, I have only one job, nothing more. That's to fight against these negative emotions. If they relax, I will relax. If they bully me, I will also challenge him. That's the one job. I mean, we can talk about secular ethics for many, many generations. It will continue to go like this. Okay? But there are few salient things that if you implement, there will be transformation, there will be change. Okay? If you're thirsty, you need to drink water, but not necessarily the whole ocean, okay? This I think is important point, because sometimes we end up studying. I ended up studying Buddhism for so many years. Geshe also so many. I'm not saying it is totally useless, but not much effect unless you practice a little bit. If you practice a little bit, there will be transformation, there will be change, there will be people who will follow you. Otherwise, okay, you learn new subject. When you finish having studied one subject, somebody has invented another new subject. So there's no end to it. Okay? There's no end to it. So one very important thing is emotional, understanding your emotion and regulating it. What else is there? This I wanted to mention. Our society is in the midst of an emotional meltdown. Okay, why we need to control emotion? Our society is in the midst of an emotional meltdown. People are restless. Isn't this true? People are restless. Everybody, wherever you go, everybody these days, people say, I'm busy. It's not important you are busy. What's important is what are you busy about? And they're busy because of desire, because of greed, because of strong negative emotions. So therefore, our society is in the midst of an emotional meltdown. People are restless, volatile. Our tempers are about to blow. In the past years, project was prescribed for over 30 million people. Domestic violence occurs in 1 out of 6 households. 50% of drivers who are cut off respond with horn honking, yelling, obscene gestures, or even road rage. Half of our marriage end in divorce. This is happening especially in so-called developed countries, so-called modernized countries, because we have misunderstood with the very meaning of modernity. Today people think modernity means many high-rise buildings, and in between many shiny roads, and on those shiny roads hundreds and thousands of cars are running up and down. Then they say, people are mesmerized and say, wow, so there's such a developed country. That is misunderstanding of modernization. Modernization means equal right between men and women, environmental protection, giving more credit to people with knowledge and compassion than those who belong to a king or a ruler or a rich person, you see. So all this we have not understood sober, unfortunately. None of this is how we live life to be, okay? Our pressure cooker society, look at this. I like this verse. That's why instead of my trying to something, I quote some of this. Our pressure cooker society pushes us to our emotional limits. है ना प्रेशर कुकर कुछ देर के बाद ढक्कन ठीक से नहीं होगा तो फिर बर्स्ट होगा, है ना? So occasionally it has to vent out its pressure. We deserve relief from getting crucified by daily stresses and so forth. There are so many studies have done. So I was tempted to read some of this. Okay, then I'll say a few words how in the Tibetan society the value education is given high importance. In one of the paragraphs, it is written in the Tibetan process of education, there is growing concern over the erosion of moral and social values among our youth. With changes in family norms and the increase in the pace of life, schools have assumed an important role in the transmission of traditional moral and social values for our youth. Recognizing this role, curricula and school activities will be planned in detail to provide opportunities to foster universal and traditional values. So when you teach values, when you teach ethics, it should not be just one subject, confined in just one subject. It should be in terms of how you speak to other people, how you greet other people, how you receive other people, how you are, ready to help other people. That kind of, strong sense of responsibility must be given. Otherwise, if you teach it like mathematics, then it will have no impact in our daily life. Okay. Three more minutes. I'll just, because the source of all this secular ethics basically comes from His Holiness's vision, I would like to read some of the outlines. In his book Beyond Religion, he says, ethics is good for business. Ethics is good for business. Ethics is good for health. We all want health. Ethics is good for name. Ethics is good for fame. And therefore we need to talk about this for the benefit of this very life. And in different places, in America, in Russia, so many places I visited, I've always asked this question to people, do you want happiness? And everybody says, yes sir, I want happiness. Then I've asked the second question by saying, how long you want this happiness? You know the answer? Huh? You know? You all want happiness? How long you want happiness? We are a bunch of greedy people, you know. So we'll all say, I want happiness as long as possible. You see, this is the thing. Secular ethics has to start. All the good things that you want to do has to start from this one understanding that I want happiness as long as possible. This is not something taught in Buddhism. This is not something you learn from religion. It is the way you are born. So please, if you really want to have ethics or practice secular ethics, write this down and put it in your bedroom or kitchen room somewhere. I want long-lasting happiness. Okay? Now, having made this slogan, I want long-lasting happiness, nobody will just come and say, okay, you want long-lasting happiness, here it is. It has to be cultivated by yourself. Then I've also asked this question, if you want that long-lasting happiness, from where do you think it will come? People normally say, from here, from inside. There's no other way. There's no other way. At the end of the day, that long-lasting happiness, which is the purpose of ethics, has to come from within oneself. Coming from within oneself means changing your perspective, making your mind attuned to the way of nature, the law of nature, living in harmony with the law of nature, living in harmony with others. If you look at the trees, plants, or anything that is existing, so long as things that would make them, flourish, those things are in harmony, they flourish. As and when there is slight disruption of those harmony, the trees will fall, human beings will die. With a slight mistake that you make in terms of your thinking, in terms of your food and so forth, you will suffer, you will get sick. Okay? Okay, now I will conclude. There's so many things, interesting things to read, so many interesting. I will give it just for myself, okay? So to conclude, I want to say, if you think about the so-called great civilizations, or if you think about the so-called great cultures, those civilizations and those cultures are called great civilization, great culture because of ethics. And if that is not there, the morality and ethics is not there, there will be no civilization which we can call great, or there will be no culture which we can call great. I mean, look at the Tibetans. The Tibetans are surviving, not only surviving, but I think we are flourishing because of culture, because of inner culture. And if this is lost, as I said, we are very good in imitating. So if you imitate something wrong, they imitate the modern pursuit of materialism and forget all your inner values, not only you will suffer, but you will suffer terribly. This is my forecast. Just like weather forecast. So it is for our own benefit, for the benefit of our children, for the future generation. We need to have ethics in general and especially secular ethics. Secular ethics is so important because, yes, religion may be important at a later stage. But secular ethics is important right from the time when we are born. And I have always been repeating this experience that when you are born, after your birth, the first thing that you do is crying, right? Not laughing, not smiling. If the first thing that you do is laughing and smiling, people might say, oh, he must be a reincarnation or an evil ghost or something, you see. Very unusual. So the first thing that you do is crying. By crying, the child is asking something. What do you think the child is asking? Do you think the child is asking for a lengthy discourse on Buddhism? No, the child is asking for secular ethics. Child is asking for secular ethics, meaning secular ethics means unconditional loving kindness. The child is asking for unconditional loving kindness because the child has nothing to give back at that time. The love that he wants at that time should be unconditional, right? So therefore, if you spend a little bit of time and think about it, you will see the great, great importance of this secular ethics. This, you call it secular ethics, you call it humanistic ethics, you call it universal ethics. There's a lot of pros and cons with the usage of all these words, but basically they are pointing to the same word. A way of life which unites all of us. From Buddhistic terms, all sentient beings, but in secular ethics we don't talk about all secular, sentient beings, but we are talking about human beings. So secular ethics is something that unites all of us. And what unites all of us is the basic good human qualities. So therefore, we should see this opportunity as a privilege of having born as a human being and having, get this wonderful opportunity to, pursue a little bit of what His Holiness is asking. Do a little bit of good things for the benefit of other people. If you're able to, His Holiness always says, if you're able to, if you're able to help the life of, say, 20 people in your life, then your journey on this planet is fulfilled. The purpose of your journey on this planet is fulfilled. If you're not able to do, but simply eat and go to the toilet and sleep, animals also do that, right? Right? So therefore, consider this opportunity as we don't use the word religion here, okay? So let us use this opportunity. It's a very important spiritual opportunity, and let us make a promise to do our little bit to make other people's life a little bit happier, healthier, and so forth. And in order to do that, you need to first of all take care of yourself, okay? Sometimes we keep on talking about others, but don't take care of oneself. So helping oneself is helping others. Helping others is helping oneself. Thank you.